Well, if we take the ships, here are two views. One shows both the changes in the skyline, I mean, what it looked like in, what was it, 1956, before the downtown Lower Manhattan skyline began to change. The Chase Manhattan Bank was the first change, and by then the piers had been replaced by wider ones, and this must have been around 1959, 1960. And by 69, the tip of Manhattan was changing, but the ships were still there, but the skyline was radically altering. Here's 1972, closer of the skyline, the ships were still there.
So as a boy, and even as an adult, you remember seeing cargo unloaded?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Great bulk cargo.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the pleasures. I mean, if you were on the promenade then, you had something to look at in the foreground, as long as the ships were there. The two biggest things in the Heights were the first, of course, the promenade, which I found was very poorly covered in the press because the decisions that led to it were made during World War II, and I came to it, about 20 years after World War II, and people's memories were not so good and not so reliable. But I've interviewed a lot of them. I interviewed engineers. I interviewed some of the older citizens here. I interviewed what politicians were left. That was certainly the biggest story I lived through. Destruction for the promenade began around 1946. This is a photo from the Triborough archives, which we requested for the Heights Press, and they sent us this photo. We sent it back, and then we requested it later, and they had lost it, so the only copy we have is what was printed in the press. But I trust it reproduces.
Yes, that was 1982.
Yeah. The other big story was the landmarking of Brooklyn Heights. In '53, there was an agreement that no taller buildings than 50 feet would be built across from the promenade. And I have some interesting correspondence with Robert Moses, because the Port Authority wanted the right to build warehouses there that would be as high as 70 feet, which would totally have blocked out the view. And there was, environmentalism hadn't really become into play yet, but this so outraged people that there was a big meeting at Borough Hall in which Moses was there, President Cashmore was there, Austin Tobin, the executive director of the Port Authority, was there, and the people were firing questions at them, and they were all very evasive, including, surprisingly, Moses.